Hi, and welcome to this ForNAV coffee break. My name is René Brummel. I'm a product specialist at ForNAV, and I will be your presenter today. As this coffee break is live, you can ask your questions via the GoToWebinar question window. We will answer them at the end of the coffee break. Today, we're going to move ForNAV setup and reports from test to production. As we have determined in earlier coffee breaks, you have many tools to make your ForNAV reports look amazing. There is the ForNAV setup for your logos and watermarks, of course, but you can also add files and additional watermarks in the ForNAV file storage and set up specific translations in the ForNAV language. You might even make completely new reports. At some point, you want to take all the work you have done and move it from the sandbox or test environment to a production environment. In this coffee break, I will move my ForNAV setup and reports from my Docker development server to a cloud sandbox. To demonstrate moving ForNAV data to production, I'm going to use these steps. The prerequisites, what do I need to get going? In step 2, I will determine what we need to move. In step 3, I will move all setup and custom layouts. In step 4, I will move custom reports. Let's start with the first step. Today, I will work in a Business Central Cloud Sandbox and an on-premise server with both with Business Central 2023 Wave 2 release. I've installed the universal code version of the ForNAV customizable report pack, and I've executed the step-by-step wizard from the assisted setup to get started. Of course, everything I do today will work in an on-premise environment as well. Please be aware that deployment of extensions to an on-premise production environment has to be done with PowerShell. I've also installed the ForNAV Designer, which can be downloaded from the ForNAV website. The first thing we need to do is to determine what we need to move from sandbox to production. There are two things to consider: data in the database and the extensions you have created. Data in the database are simple. These are tables in the Business Central database that contain data that we need, which are the custom report layouts, of course, the ForNAV setup, the ForNAV language, the ForNAV file storage, and in ForNAV 7.3 we will have text and some other bits and bobs that we will also add to the ForNAV backup. An extension is a bit more complicated. These are packages that we need to compile with either the ForNAV Designer or Visual Studio Code. So let's go and have a look at our Docker development server. So you'll notice that I'm on a Docker development server, and please be aware that I'm working in the company Kronos International Limited, which is important. I'll let you know later on why. So what we have in this sandbox is a bunch of custom layouts. So I've got the custom layouts for my customer list, and if I look at these layouts, you will notice that most of these layouts are not connected to any specific company, but one of them is connected to the company Kronos International Limited. Keep this in the back of your mind, but we'll get back to this later on. Of course, I've got my ForNAV file storage. And in the ForNAV file storage, I've got some terms and conditions. I have my ForNAV language, which, if I switch over to objects, contains a couple of translations for my order confirmation and customer list. And of course, we have the ForNAV setup. And in the ForNAV setup, we have the payment node, legal conditions, the logo, document watermark, VAT report setup, etc. So that's all of the data that's stored inside the Business Central database. And we also have the extensions. Let's go to extension management filter for ForNAV. And you will find that I have the ForNAV my list right here. I've got some other extensions here as well, which we're not going to move. It's just ForNAV my list that I want to move today. So that's everything that I need to move to production. The next step, of course, now we know where to get our data from, is to export that data and import it in production. There are many ways to do this, but we recommend using the ForNAV backup option from the ForNAV setup page. So let's go back to Business Central. I was already in the ForNAV setup page. That was intentional. In the ForNAV setup page, I have a backup option where I can export, and I can export across company. Let's do them both. I will export. That opens the export backup worksheet where I can select and export my selected stuff, or I can just do an export all. And I want to export everything today, so I will do that. I will also do a export across company, and again export all. So we have done that. Let's go and have a look at what we end up with. We end up with 2 zip files, and if I unzip these zip files, simply extract them to the ForNAV backup, you will find that in that zip file we have the file storage language, layout and setup, and in the file storage we have terms PDF and terms and conditions.pdf. If I go here into language, we have English, object, and the customer list and the order confirmation. I have my custom layouts. Right here, the customer list. And you will notice that the customer list has one for Krones International and one with no company. And if you drill down all the way there, you will find the docx files. And finally, we have the setup, which contains all of the things that has the setup. So this ForNAV backup is the backup that was not exported across companies. If I have a backup that I do across companies, which is the backup 1, I will unzip that as well quickly. You will find it in the file storage. The first node I have is the company in which the export originated, which in this case is Krones International. That means that if I import this backup across companies in a database that doesn't have the same companies, I might have some errors because it can't import the stuff into that company. So what we are going to do is we have this this ForNAV backup.zip, which is the backup that is not across companies. I'm going to import that in my Cloud Sandbox, and you will notice right here this Cloud Sandbox is Krones in the Netherlands, so it is a completely different company. So go to the ForNAV setup. In the ForNAV setup, I have actions, backup, import. I can choose my file that I want to import, which was the ForNAV backup.zip. If I import that, you will get the import backup worksheet where you can choose what to import or just import everything. And in this case, I will just import everything. There we go. Now we have some issues. The import was completed with errors. That's also intentional, by the way. It says right here that the file storage already exists. Apparently, I've moved that to production before, so perfectly fine. As long as it's there, it's there. And a document watermark file name already exists, and a document watermark already exists. Perfectly fine. I hadn't deleted that before I did the import. Everything else you will notice, I've got my payment node, legal conditions, logos, watermarks, everything is there. And if I open my ForNAV reports, you will notice that for the customer list, everything looks a bit different. There we go. In my originating sandbox, I've got these 2 custom layouts, one of them on the Krones International, which was the one that was activated. The only problem is that of course I'm not in Krones International, I'm in Krones NL, which means that in the custom layouts right here, I can only see the custom layout that was imported without the company name. Now the other custom layout is there in the system. If I open my custom report layouts, you will find right here my customer list that was imported on Krones International. Now Krones International doesn't exist in this database, so let's just stick it onto Krones NL. Go back to my ForNAV reports, open my custom layouts, and you will find that once I switch it to the correct company, it is there. I can activate it, and we are back. So please be aware that these custom report layouts, they can be company specific. And if you import them in a database with different company names, then you might get some weird results. Everything else is there. We haven't seen the ForNAV language yet, so let's have a look at that. In the objects, we have the two entries that we have in the other database as well. So that's everything that is stored in the Business Central database. Now, finally, we want to move our extensions from the sandbox to the production. And to do this, we first need to get the application package. For this demo, we will assume that you have created the extensions with the ForNAV designer. However, when you create extensions from Visual Studio Code or from an automated build process, you may need to get your app file from your source control. Please speak to your ForNAV partner if you are not sure where your app file is. So what I'm going to do today is I have my ForNAV designer, which I've connected to my Docker development server. In my extensions, I can download an extension. And in here, I've got my complete extension list, and I've got my ForNAV my list right here. If I hit OK, I can save the source file. And if we have a look at the downloads folder, you will notice that I've got a ForNAV mylist.app file. This app file is a compiled extension. That is an extension that I can import in my production system. To do so in a cloud sandbox or a cloud production environment, we can go to extension management, and we're talking about the Microsoft Cloud. We have under manage and upload extension, where we can choose the app file that we have gotten earlier, accept all of the everything and deploy, and that will install my extension in production. This will take a while and it's a bit boring to keep looking at it, so I will leave this right here now. Let's recap what we just did. The first step is to figure out what data we need to move from test to production. We found that there are several tables that ForNAV uses to customize reports. You can move this data manually. Every setup table in the ForNAV report pack has a way of exporting and importing data. However, the ForNAV setup page has a great backup function to export and import everything in one action. We found that the tricky part of moving data to production is the custom extensions. For this coffee break, we have used a simple extension that we have created and managed through the ForNAV designer. This is fine for end users who want to maintain some of their own reports. For ForNAV partners, we recommend that all custom reports are stored in source control and are managed with Visual Studio Code. This means that this final step may be different depending on the test and build management that you or your ForNAV partner uses. And also please be aware again that in on-premise, Business Central on-premise, you need to deploy extensions with PowerShell. Thank you for listening to me so far. I can see we have a question. So let's see if I can make this question window a bit bigger. Jean, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly, asks, when will you use the export across companies? We typically use that if we develop reports in a customer test system, where a customer might have created a complete and full backup of their production system as a test system. And in that case, you have a test system that also has the exact same companies that your production system has. And in that case, you will do setup in each one of your customers' production companies. And in that case, you will do the export across companies, because then you can export everything and import it into production in one go, because the companies match exactly. So you can use the export across companies only when your development system has the exact same companies that your production system has. I hope that answers your question. I can see no more questions so far, so I will proceed and wrap up this coffee break. If you want to know more about ForNAV, or if you want to download the ForNAV Designer and Converter, please visit our website. If you want to install ForNAV in Business Central Cloud, please visit the Microsoft App Source. You can watch more videos about ForNAV on our YouTube channel, and if you have any questions about ForNAV, please email them to support@fornav.com. I can see at the last minute, another question that comes in. Katrina asks, is it necessary to save your app file locally then? You need to save your app file somewhere so you can publish it. So you cannot just move your app file from the one database to the other one. You need to download it from a development server, or you need to do a build from VS Code, for instance, or from a build system. So you get your app file, but you need to get your app file somewhere. Wrapping up then, for a full list of upcoming and recorded coffee breaks, please visit fornav.com/coffeebreak. I can see no more questions, so thank you very much for listening to me today, and goodbye.